wanted to start an instrument because both my parents are musicians and they would play chamber music often together. And I got really jealous because I was not included in their fun activity that they would do. So that's how I kind of picked up the cello, because they needed a bass instrument or a lower range instrument. So when I was trying to look for a teacher, initially my dad's a flute player, so he wanted me to play the bassoon because he's a woodwind player. And we tried to look for a bassoon teacher, but he couldn't really find one. And it also turns out that I guess bassoon's not something that you start until you're like bigger. It's not like they have like a baby sized bassoon for like little kids. So like the alternative was the cello, because we heard from a family friend that this new cello teacher had come into town, Alice Ann O'Neill. So I just, I didn't care what instrument, I just wanted to play with my parents. So I started the cello, and it turns out that Kyle was also around the same time, started studying with the same teacher. So that's where we kind of got to know each other through the group classes. Then not long after, I started attending Chamber Music Connection, which is Kyle's mom's chamber music program. And then from there, I kind of got involved, I guess, in the Price family musical endeavor, because Stephanie, his older sister, was my first, I guess, quartet mate and was the violist in my group. So then, like, through there, it started to kind of, I got sucked into their world of chamber music, I suppose.
So growing up, I started when I was 4, so I've been playing the violin my whole life. And both, like you said, everyone in my family played instruments, and my parents were very good at, like, even when it got hard, I wanted to quit a lot, but they wouldn't let me, which I'm glad now, I guess. But so anyway, I grew up around a lot of jazz. My dad worked on the Duke Ellington collection at the Smithsonian. So I got to hear a lot of really cool recordings and be around a lot of cool people, and I just loved it. And I remember one day, but I never really like learned the improv stuff officially. I was always just trained classically. And then one day, like a weekend, just sitting around, and my dad comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, come here, follow me into my room." So I go with him. He's like, "Grab your instrument." So and he played guitar. He plays a bunch of instruments, but he played guitar at that time. And he's like, "Okay, so you're gonna play this piece. It's like a fiddle tune. I can't even remember what it was." But he's like, "Just play it, and I'm gonna play with you in the background." And I just play the melody. I was like, "Cool." He's like, "Now do some like little embellishments, like kind of do some fun stuff." I was like, "Okay." So we play it again. I do some embellishments. He's like, "Okay, now go outside the box a little bit, right?" And we keep doing this over and over again. He keeps on saying like, "Oh, go farther, do crazier stuff." And he keeps going until finally I go so crazy. He's like, "Bro, stop, bring it back. That's a little too much. You gotta take it easy there." But that's kind of like what got me started on the whole improv thing, just like experimenting with like anything. And then from there, he brought my sisters in, and we had like a family band, and that was entirely like bluegrass and that kind of style. So I did a bunch of bluegrass growing up with my family. I did like one competition, which was funny, in town, and that was good. But I didn't do a lot of jazz. I didn't play a lot of jazz. It was only until later. I always loved it, but only until later that I started to like explore a little bit more, experiment, and still to this day, it's gonna be one of those things that I'm just like keep on learning. Every year is something different. Get a little bit better and learn some things, stuff like that. It was fun to play with Ken, because when he just chonks on like the chords, like last summer, every time we come together, we'll just like look up a bunch of charts. He'll just like during lunchtime just groove, and I'll try. Something.
So I run a production called JHM Jams. It's a bi-weekly cover series. So every Tuesday and Friday, you'll see a new video of a pop or a jazz cover, where it's a rotating roster, and we have over 260 musicians. So every time it's kind of like a different instrumentation, different members, and we just kind of learn tunes by ear, just have a good time, and we bust out a video and just post it. So
nice.
That's kind of one of the things I do.
That zigzag in the back there.
So that's a picture. They're Polaroids, like little Polaroid pictures.
I've heard of those. Yeah.
Yeah. The old school photos. But those are all some of the musicians that have come through and performed for us, every time someone performs for the first time, we take a picture of them and then we just hang it on what we call our wall of fame.
Am I up there, Ken? Am I on the wall of fame?
Well, we have to take a picture of you, you know? Like,
Okay.
That's the thing. So I guess that maybe this year or in the future, I'll bring a Polaroid and I'll take a picture to all of you guys so I can bring it back to New York and put you on the wall.
Yeah, great.
Kind of associate me now with like the dude that plays the cello kind of like a guitar. And it initially started way, you know, in the beginning, even when I first started cello. My first string quartet with Stephanie was called the Gatello String Quartet, simply because I would always play cello like a guitar. And I just thought it was a cool thing to do. And also, yeah, as a young kid, you kind of want to, you know, be cool, kind of stand out and get attention, and you kind of feed off that.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was just kind of like a little thing that I did for fun, just to try to pretend that I was really cool. And I also admired guitarists, and I wanted to be a guitarist and be in a band, because that was kind of what the cool kids did. But I couldn't figure out how to play the guitar. It like had way too many strings. It was tuned differently. It made no sense to me. So I kind of settled for the cello to try to do that. But, you know, I give Caroga the credit for me actually learning how to like play like functional progression chords. So, you know, it wasn't until I like met Aaron and like this gang of people that were classically trained but would do these kind of crossover like jazz things, and you know, they would be like, oh, Ken, you kind of like play cello like a guitar. We don't have a guitarist right now. Can you just like strum out some chords? Like, here are the chords, here's the progression, like do whatever, make it up. And like, I wasn't comfortable with that initially. I didn't know how to read a chart. I didn't know, you know, if you were to tell me like play a C major 7th chord, I was like, I don't know what notes are in that chord. You know, I'm like, how am I supposed to play that? So literally, because I was kept putting, like, people kept putting me in the situation where I had to play a bunch of chord progressions, where, you know, Aaron would be like, hey, yo, this is a cool tune. Here's a chart. Let's play. And I would be like, oh no, I don't know how to do this. But I had to pretend that I did, because that's the cool thing to do, you know, not show your weakness. So anyways, so literally I would sit down and figure out, you know, okay, in a C major chord, what are the notes in a C major chord? So I would like spell it out for myself. Then I would be like, okay, on a cello, how many of those notes can I play? And then like, what's my finger pattern to play like a major 7th chord or like a dominant chord? Because none of this, like, you know, like I'm classically trained. I went to music school. I took my theory classes, but reading a chord chart on the spot and like voicing things is not something that I learned as a classical cellist. So this was like a completely new skill set that I had to learn to like still be able to hang out with like Aaron and other cool jazz cats that were at Caroga. So literally that's how I figured it out. I sat down for hours on end, just kind of like literally writing out fingering patterns and fingering charts for all of the different kind of chord, I guess, shapes that I would come across. And then every year, because like then after we finished Caroga during the year, I wouldn't really do a lot of jazz. So then when we come back to Caroga, I would just pick up where I left off the previous summer and then try to like build a little bit more from that. And then we would just leave it. And then the next year we would try to build a little bit more. So yeah, like it's been like a very long kind of journey. You know, every year we get a little bit better at what we do. Like Aaron and I, we just learn a little bit more from our previous year of kind of like a little bit more skill sets or like things. So it's fun. That's one of the things I enjoy about being at Caroga too, because I get to build these skill sets that I normally don't, being a classical cellist. It's like literally holding it like sideways like this, you know. So then I can just kind of keep strumming out, you know. Literally, I have like picks too. Like these are, I think, bluegrass picks that one of the Saunders recommended, because I guess they do a lot of these things. And they're like, yeah, Ken, like, don't use a guitar pick because it's too flimsy or cello strings are too thick. So then they gave me this like really thick thing. So then now, you know, so it's much now. I don't get blisters anymore. I used to get blisters so much just being at Caroga every summer. Every Caroga, I would get like the most massive blister, and it would be the most painful thing because I used to do everything just with my fingers.
Right, just with your hand, yeah.
I would beat it up. But now that doesn't happen thanks to the Saunders. Yes, one of my initial, I guess, memories of Caroga, I mean, the first time I guess I went, of course, there's a lot of lakes and there's a lot of water sports that you can do, which I haven't really have done in the past, whether if it's kneeboarding, water skiing, anything. So of course, kindly, the family took me out to the lake and I did my first round of kneeboarding. And, you know, they told me, you know, how to get on the board, and they told me, you know, just the gist of kind of what I was supposed to expect. And once I started, I realized that they forgot to tell me what I'm supposed to do if I want to stop. You know, like they didn't tell me, you know, they told me how to get on the board, how to start, how to do it, but
we figured you'd fall off, I think. That's it.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, they didn't tell me that. I've never done it before. I've never seen anybody really do it. So I thought, my understanding was that if I wanted to stop, they were going to slow down the boat. They were going to kind of like pull me in to the boat, and then I was going to just get back into the boat, and that's how I was going to stop. And apparently that's not true. But so anyways, I'm going, and after going for a while, of course I start to get really tired. My arms are getting shot, and I'm just like, oh, this is like really exhausting. So I'm like trying to wave to them, being like, okay, like I wanna stop. Like, can you guys like slow down the boat and, you know, like pull me in or something? And, you know, I'm waving to stop, but they're just waving back, and they're like, ha ha ha, hey, like I'm glad you're having a good time. And I'm like, no, like I want to stop. And they're like, you know, just like let go. I'm like, if I let go, I'm going to die. You know, like, I don't know if you understand. If I let this go, I'm going to die, you know. But of course they didn't. They were like, yeah, no, just like literally like, yeah, like do this. And I'm like, I can't, I'm holding on, you know. So that was, you know, one of my first memories of Caroga. And my muscles were shot for like a couple of days. Like I was so sore, like I could barely play the cello, you know, just struggling to just get by because nobody told me how I'm supposed to get off a kneeboard, you know. So
we're used to people falling initially. I think you just excelled too.
Yeah, I think I was just an extraordinary student, and I just didn't fall off.
Yeah.
You know? So that was my problem for being so talented on the kneeboard. I
think so. Well, you've always had good kneeboarding audition videos. So
yeah.
And then Aaron, if you want to give us a story, if you have any. I'm sure you have many.
Yeah, I've got plenty, but there's one that I remember I'll never forget. But also, like, Ken, I remember that. I was on the boat with you. And, yeah, we were going, and we're just kind of like, oh, man, he's still going. I think Tim was driving.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it was like.
He's doing great. But, no, yeah, so the story, shit. It was fun. This was a few years ago. This was during the eclipse, the solar eclipse we had. And this was, Kyle's like really busy, you know, and he barely had, I mean, that was one of the bummers about like, as this grew, is he's busy working while all of us are like having a good time on our, you know, he didn't really have a lot of off time. So finally the solar eclipse comes and he's like, all right, it's just me and him. They're like, everyone else is doing something else. And we just took a paddleboard and what was it? A paddleboard and something else.
Kayak, I think.
Oh, one of the kayaks. Yeah. So we had both those, and we were just like, let's just go out on the lake during the solar eclipse and just chill and hang out. So we did, and we paddled over to Sherman's. And as this is happening, the solar eclipse is happening, and it's like the light becomes really cool, and you know the animals get quiet. They think it's getting night, and we go over to Sherman's, and we see this little alcove that goes in that we're like, hey, let's go explore this, you know, like I don't know where it goes. So we're going through, and it was hilarious. We ended up going up this little creek that it felt like a different world. It felt like all of a sudden we went through like a portal. We kept on saying like, and then the solar eclipse is doing some crazy magic stuff on us, you know. So we like go through the tunnel of like spiders. There's this tunnel full of spiders, but we're like, oh, we got through it. And we get to this like dam that is there. Kyle remembers, and and we couldn't get both our kayak and our paddleboard over the dam. So we like, okay, we put our kayak off to the side and we grab the paddleboard. Like, okay, let's go around this dam, and then we'll both just sit on the paddleboard and try to go further up the creek, which we did. It's very small, and the paddleboard's like kind of sinking, but not. So we're like kind of staying afloat, and it was cool. Like it got really quiet, just looking around, and we come across another dam. We keep on going, and it was funny how quick our wonder shifted because we're coming to this last dam, right? We're like, oh man, we got another one. I don't know if we're gonna be able to go over this one. I look down at my hand. I see these two little things on my hand. I'm like, what is that? And I look closer. I'm like, oh, those are leeches. I've got leeches on my hand, right? I'm like trying to rip it off, and I don't know if you've ever had a leech on your hand or anything like that. You try to peel it off, and then it'll like stick to your other hand. So immediately, all of a sudden, we're like, this is so cool. Like, oh my God, this is awful, because all of a sudden we're like trying to get out of there as quick as possible. We're running into all these bushes that have like huge spiders in them. It was like Hansel and Gretel going for like the candy in the house. Yeah, it was really fun. It was really fun. I won't forget that, because your one time off, we explore this area and it turns into a horror show. So.
Yeah,
it's really exciting to me because I get to really know the community, the members of the community. Like personally, I get to meet everyone and get to talk to them, and go over to their home and have meals when they're kind to donate meals to us, or if they're hosting some artists, then we get to really know them well. So I get to feel really close to the entire town, not just the CAC and the musicians, but very much I feel part of the community whenever I'm there. So that's really always something that I feel excited to go back to, because when I go back, I'm not just seeing my friends, but I'm also seeing my friends in the community. So it's really heartwarming to always come back. And in the sense of like the musical, I guess the field, much like what we were talking earlier, the ability for us the flexibility for us to explore genres not classical. Of course, we get to play classical at an extremely high level, which is awesome. But at the same time, being able to play pop and jazz at the same kind of level, at the high level, as we do the classical music, is a very exciting thing that I don't find often that we get to do as like a singular artist, to be able to do all of them in one sitting. So that's always exciting to me, because whenever I'm at Caroga, I feel like I can just kind of play music for the sake of music and just kind of sharing it for the sake of sharing it. I feel very comfortable there, being able to, I guess, kind of stay grounded to why I became a musician, why I continue being a musician, and what I enjoy about being a musician. I'm able to kind of sustain all of those interests and passions when I'm there.
Chat that I can screen share with everyone.
Yeah, let's take a look at
Not
that.
to embarrass you guys.
Oh no! Oh no!
Take a look.
Stephanie.
from childhood.
Oof.
Oh, there's Ken.
That's the original Gatello right there with turtlenecks and all.
Stephanie, what have you done?
That's amazing.
I guess I'll start. So I started violin at the age of 5. To be honest, I don't really remember why, but I know that I have an older brother and he started playing piano. And so when I was around 5, I guess my parents wanted me to play an instrument, and all I knew is that I didn't want to play piano because my brother had a head start and he'd always be better than me. So my dad actually plays a little bit of violin, and so he started me, and that lasted about a year because we just fought too much. So after about a year, he decided to send me to a different teacher, and that's how I started violin.
My start in music was quite strange in that my first exposure to music was actually much like we were viewing each other over a screen. My first kind of introduction to music was through the magical world of laser discs. I don't know how many of you remember laser discs, but they're like giant DVDs, as big as vinyl, but they play videos. And my father had a collection of laser discs of famous symphonies, such as the Berlin Philharmonic, New York Philharmonic, Boston Symphony, with legends of conductors at the time. Leonard Bernstein, Seiji Ozawa, Herbert von Karajan, the greats. And growing up, I would actually watch those videos. They would put it on the big TV we had at home. And I was very fascinated with conducting, actually, the connection between physical movement and sound. And so I actually found it quite entrancing, and I would go to my family's kitchen and grab a chopstick, and I would go back to the TV and kind of conduct alongside the screen. And so that was kind of my strange start in music. Eventually formalized into cello. I initially wanted to play the double bass because I loved low sounds. I loved the way it reverberates one's body. And I told my parents I wanted to play the double bass, but I was and still am a relatively small Asian man. And my parents said, you know what, maybe that's not the greatest idea. So we took it down a notch and we settled on the cello. And that's how my start.
Cool. Actually, that's a good lead-in. I had something else I wanted to share with everyone, and I wasn't sure if they're aware of it. But Nathan, there is something around Caroga, around the musicians. We are aware of some younger Nathan Chan videos, specifically age 2. And I'm going to go into the screen share here and kind of bring it back a little bit. So let's take a listen to, let's see this. We recognize Seiji Ozawa right here. Let's see where Nathan comes into play here. So Nathan, obviously things haven't changed much. You can still see that same enthusiasm today. Can you tell me about how old you were in this photo?
How did you even find these, Cal? I've never even seen these. I think I did from the top when I was in 8th grade, so 13 or 14 in that picture.
And when did you, or what did you play?
I think I played Sarasate's Gunnerweisen. Man, brings me back. Still rocking that hair, but I just got a haircut like 2 days ago for this, but it looked almost the same.
It's amazing. And for those who don't know, in the back there is Christopher O'Reilly, and he's a well-known pianist that plays with most of us when we go to play on the show. And also, let's see, Nathan, here's a photo of Nathan. Nathan, you want to tell us a little bit about when this was?
Oh boy, I look basically the same. I think this was probably, maybe 2005 or 6. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, I think for both Andy and I, From the Top was a wonderful experience because I think a lot of us growing up listened to that show and were amazed by the level of folks our age around the country, and it was a big kind of inspiration to all of us growing up, hearing our colleagues on the radio, much like we nowadays see YouTube videos of our colleagues all over the world. And this is, I look very concentrated, and I don't know why I'm wearing a strange black shirt. Get my shirt. I need some cufflinks or something. That's a horrible look.
It looks great.
Yeah, so Nathan and I met maybe 3 years ago now, and we both actually got our jobs in the symphony around the same time, but we didn't know each other. But we were both good friends with a mutual acquaintance that actually you guys will know very well since he's been to Caroga, but Ken Kubota is a great mutual friend of both of ours. And so when we both won our jobs, he was like, oh, you guys have to meet each other. Yeah, and so that kind of started a great friendship. that I don't know what I would do if I didn't know Nathan, because yeah, we're two of the youngest members of the symphony. So there's not a lot of, 20 somethings in the symphony. So it's great to have someone around the same age that kind of has the same interests, and we hang out a lot in Seattle.
Yeah, it's been a great pleasure to know Andy and make music with him. I have a like-minded friend to discuss music and video games and things like that, and it's been a real pleasure. And I still remember the first time I heard Andy play Mendelssohn Octet at Caroga.
Oh God!
It was outdoors and it was a semi-windy day. And you all know Mendelssohn Octet is very difficult, especially for the first violin. And on that windy day, the pages were flapping around, and somehow he managed to turn this page and get back in on the entrance within, I would say it was a matter of 3-4 seconds, and I was like, and that was very impressive to me. He stayed calm and cool the whole time, and I would say
I'm glad that's what you remember.
Were we wearing swimsuits as well at that time? I'm not sure which concert you were.
That one, don't remember,
Pre-
but I don't recall.
Pre-dress code days.
Pre-dress code.
My favorite concerts in Seattle was that we did an all John Williams program conducted by John Williams. That was pretty amazing just to see that legend on stage with us. And I remember at the concert, I mean, it was completely sold out. And just the first time he walked on the stage, just to even before the first piece started, it was like the loudest, longest standing ovation I've ever heard. And it's just pretty awesome to see kind of just a titan of the music industry, and just kind of the passion and respect that people have. And I remember that concert because we came out after intermission for the second half, and there was a chair next to the podium, and everyone was kind of like, oh, it's kind of weird, this next piece doesn't have a soloist or anything, why is there a chair there suddenly? And so John Williams comes out and he starts introducing the films, and he was like, well, maybe I'll let someone else that has a little bit more expertise talk about it. And then he was like, ladies and gentlemen, Steven Spielberg. And then we turn around and suddenly Steven Spielberg randomly just walks out on the stage, and people are losing their minds. Even in the orchestra, we're just mouths on the floor. And when you go to a symphony concert, they're always turn off your cell phones, please, no pictures. It was just everyone had their phones out and they were recording or taking pictures. But
at Sherman's, running my very first ever live auction, and it's something that I've always dreamt of doing, because I can turn on the entertainer voice, and I've always wanted to be a talk show host. And so it was a chance to let my inner child out and raise money for a great cause. And just to hear the hype and the excitement and the dollars go up, that was very exciting for me to enter a different world. Sometimes I feel like I try to do that on my cello, but to do it in a way with my voice, in a way, it's not that different. Cello is my voice is my voice. That was a wonderful experience, and thank you for entrusting me.
I think sometimes I've had this discussion with Nathan a few times actually, but people will often ask, why do you play music? And I think we sometimes categorize it into, there's kind of three different options. And usually we find that people fall into one of the three, some more than others, or a couple of the three. But basically you can play music for yourself, or you can play music like the music. Or you can, are you hearing a weird feedback? Sorry. Okay. So you can play music for the music, or you can play music for others. And I would say Nathan and I, primarily we play music for others. And one of the, I don't know, there's not one instance that really comes to mind, but there is a place that every time I play there, I just feel this energy. And I would have to say it's at Caroga in the chapel. There's just something about every time I play at the Caroga chapel, and it's 102 degrees in there, and it's jam packed with 150 people, probably way over fire code. But I mean, it's just the energy and seeing, sorry, Jack, but there's just something about the energy of just like a room full of people so intently listening on the music that you're producing and looking out and seeing so many familiar faces, people that are, you know, friends that I've known for almost a decade now, which is crazy. I mean, they've really seen me grown up. But there's just something, especially I love playing music for other people. I mean, it's not really for myself and it's not really for the music. Like, sure, there's great music that we play and I do love playing music, but really I love, you know, my favorite thing is kind of looking out in the audience and seeing how people are reacting. And I'm definitely guilty of that, you know, in the symphony hall too. It's like sometimes I'll kind of look out and just try to find someone that's really engaged. And if they're happy, then that really moves me. But just being in the chapel and just seeing so many of my friends just love dearly like what we're doing just really takes me to someplace special. And that's, you know, something that I just love doing.
I've been, you know, delving into my taste buds, salt, fat, acid, heat, 4 very main and important components of cooking. I'm graduating from eating 6 hard-boiled eggs for dinner, which I used to do in my college days, and ramen, and moving on to, you know, quesadillas and salads. Oh, I didn't realize you had to mix different types of greens in a salad to make it more flavorful and interesting. I thought you just get the romaine lettuce and you're good to go, but romaine lettuce actually doesn't have much inherent flavor into it. So you need to add spring mix and kale and adding nuts is important, and a citrus element, a little squeeze of lemon, very important. Salt, pepper, oil. I've also been adding anchovies to my salad because I love savory things. So I feel like I went off on a tangent here. I forgot what we were talking about.